I always, I used to have the chit chat before the chit chats. Like I would get on a podcast and I'd be like, hey, how's it going, etc., etc. And then like we talk for 10 minutes and then there'd be 10 minutes of absolute gold. I'm like, why did I just press
you have to start again and be like, hey, how you doing, bro?
And you're like, I just told you. I just told you. So thanks for coming on, Charlie. Really appreciate you, brother. Actually, you know me, normally when I have guests on, I like to go deep. I like to go deep, man. But actually today, I mean, we may still do, but I want to talk about excellence and high performance. And I'm really interested in your views on how that looks for a professional poker player these days. It's really funny. I'm in an apartment, and the guy who lives above me is a professional poker player, I could just hear him in his chair grinding. Like I moved in, I didn't know, and I hear he's got a wooden floor, and I hear this chair going backwards and forwards, and I see him, and I said to him, "Are you a professional poker player or an esports?" And he's like, "Yeah, professional poker player." I fucking knew it.
That's so
You're keeping me awake. You're keeping me awake all night.
You just hear him fucking swearing like fucking six.
he's actually really verbally quiet, but like he's noisy. But I mean, I got a 6-year-old daughter, so I'm probably noisier than him. So there's 2 books I've read on high performance lately, right? And each of them has their one book has their top 8 like traits you're supposed to have. Another one has like 6. I'm going to reel them out. Obviously, they're not all going to stick, just to give you some ideas. And then let's just start talking about what you think are the main traits, right? So there's this podcast out there called the High Performance Podcast, and they did a book as well. Yeah. And their 8 traits to be a high performer are taking 100% responsibility, getting your motivation right, managing emotions. I can stick these in a chat in a minute, actually. Playing to your strengths, flexibility, finding your non-negotiables in life, being a leader, and crafting a culture. And then there's this other book I read by Brendan Burchard called High Performance Habits. Yeah. And he claims to have done the most comprehensive search and analysis on high performance ever. And he said he found clarity, bold statement, clarity, generating energy, raising the necessity, increasing productivity, developing influence, and demonstrating courage. I know you work with a lot of poker players and you give back a lot in the poker community. What do you see when you see someone and you're like, oh man, this person's fucking got it? What is it, Charlie?
As just a poker player, or just in the rest of their life as well?
Well, I don't think we can, if we really want to look at high performance as a poker player, I don't think we can just look at the technical aspect of it, right? Because, they need to have their shit together off the table as well, right? So holistically, I suppose.
Yeah, so it depends on like a million different factors, which is why I'm pretty skeptical about people saying they've done like comprehensive deep dives on these things, because it's so multivariate. It's like if you try and understand nutrition, you can do 100 different studies and get 100 different contradictory results. And well, now we've got 100 studies that prove 100 different things, so nobody knows anything. Yeah. But there are obviously going to be some trends that you'll notice when you work with a lot of people, or when you speak to a lot of people, things that the more successful people manage to do really, really well. And I think what's really important, I think you'll probably agree with this, is to not get pigeonholed into this mindset, the fucking grind set, the idea that if you want to be the most productive person ever, you have to work, and maximize in this utilitarian, sterile fashion of, let's just make sure that every single fucking second of my life, I'm going to be fucking crushing it. Because I've seen people like that. It's that guy called David Goggins, something like that.
Yeah. It's almost like what you're talking about. It's like the Gary Vaynerchuk crush it mentality, right?
I don't know who that was.
You ain't got time to watch fucking Game of Thrones. You're watching Game of Thrones. Yeah. You got time to fucking do another hour of work, right? That type of mentality.
And hot take, I see that, and I see mental illness. Mm-hmm. I see disaster happening internally, and I see avoidance of the internal by externalizing their whole existence. And so I really like to make that distinction. You can be very hyper productive, very good at what you do, but still have a very intact internal system. And that means being in touch with your emotions, with your spirituality, with fucking loads of other things, having good relationships with you, with your parents, with your animals, with your house, having a clean fucking everything. And still maintaining that very diligent, intellectualized productivity. And I think that to have one or the other is just not optimal. So if we want to talk about optimization, I'll see somebody that's got their life in order. You know, they have good, solid relationships around them. They're honest with other people. They're healthy, like physically healthy. They're mentally healthy. They're spiritually healthy. They're curious to learn. They're humble. Their ego isn't out of control. That's the internal side. Then the external side is, okay, how do you handle, you know, if you're in business, how do you handle yourself? Are you precise with your words? Are you timely? Do you turn up to meetings on time? Do you let people down very often? And in poker, it's okay, if you're going to grind and you set yourself a target, are you going to try your hardest to hit that target? Are you going to be precise in the way that you execute all of your betting strategy? Are you going to turn up to these meetings of other poker players to come and learn? Are you going to study the solver solutions? Not that I do that, but you know, if that's the way that you study, are you going to do that as much as you feel like you should? And when you combine these two things, something magical happens. It stops being a grind. Everything that you do that's productive, if you manage to optimize, becomes a joy. So like today, I've had, this is my 4th or 5th meeting or something like that. And everything that I've done today has been so fucking fun. So fucking it's just, it's a fucking, it's stuff that other people might not find fun. You know, I had a lesson in Russian this morning.
Oh, wow.
And I've been learning Russian at the moment. It's a fucking tough language, man.
Yeah,
I would recommend it's fucking great language as well. And then I had a meeting with a production company and stuff like that. Other people see this, it's okay, it's a meeting, I'll turn up and I'll do it. But for me, it's like, I love nourishing my life. I love adding to my life into the external world. And so taking a step like that is so fucking fun. So when I see people that have really nailed it, and I'm not actually a great example of this yet because I've done the internal stuff, but externally I can be sloppy. You know, when running a business, I'm not coordinating people as well as I could do. You know, I'm turning up on time finally. You know, it took me a long time to be able to be that person. I can be a good leader. I can communicate, but there are still things that I just let slip because pragmatically I've just not had that practice, and that's where I learn from other people who are very successful in business to be able to teach me these things. So it's hard to find great examples of that in the poker community because poker players as a demographic tend to be all over the place. You know, we're pretty, you know, with almost like youthful energies. Even if we're 50 years old, we're still playing a game for a living. You know, we're often not very healthy, often not very coordinated with our time and our scheduling and things like that. And it kind of comes with the territory of being a poker player. But when I see people get it close to perfect or very, very good, it's a beautiful thing to see. And it often happens after somebody's already had loads of success. So when I actually don't know this, but if I were to take a good guess, I would say someone like Fedor would be very on top of a lot of these different things. I think he does a lot of internal work and he does a lot of external work. Someone like Stefan Sondheimer, or however you say it. I look at him as like, okay, he's very intellectual, he's very driven, he's very pragmatic, but it also looks like he's doing a lot of that internal work as well. So someone like Liv Barry, I think, would be another really good example of that. Again, I don't know any of these people personally, like that deeply at least, but I just get that feeling from that. Okay, they're sorting their house out, you know, putting their house in order. They're dealing with themselves in a really good way, internally and externally.
I mean, a good example on that, I think, or what came up for me as you were talking was I told you just before I came on, I had a group call. I run this community called Strive where I help people quit alcohol and live more consciously. And there was a woman and a man on the call. And when I was working with a woman, we were doing something called internal family systems work. It's like a form of psychotherapy from Dr. Richard Schwartz. And I was helping her and guiding her to egoic parts of her, parts of her ego who were like sub-personalities who really wanted to drink alcohol, right? And so I was guiding her into her self-energy so she could have those conversations. And she met two different parts and she had conversations with them. And then when she came out of her meditation, we talked about it. And what the summary was is similar to what you're saying. Her parts were desperate for her attention, desperate to be seen, desperate to be heard, desperate to matter. And she wasn't paying attention to them because she just got a new job. So she was working to the grind on this new job. While she's working on the grind to the new job, she also had to make food for her husband. She had to take a kid to school and to brownies. She had to walk the dog. So she's going 100 mile an hour externally, and internally her little parts are going, help me, help me, help me. And she's not recognizing them, right? So I said to her, let's just get your calendar, fucking put it back to blank a minute, put in your sleeping time, right? Now, the next time, do you have to be at work at a certain time? No. Okay. So next, I want you to find some time to put in me. And what I want you to do is I don't want you to meditate. I don't want you to run. I don't want you to jog. Don't want you to do yoga. I want you to talk to your parts. I want you to get into your body, see what's happening, who needs your attention, and I want you to pour some love on them, right? That's the work that's needed to do. It's almost like the internal world and your internal family mirrors your external family. And in poker, it'd be like, I'm going to grind 72 hours a week, and I might like fuck my girlfriend every now and then when I get the chance, and eat frozen pizzas. That's not really going to work. I guess my question for you is, it comes up for me, is there an element of you need the sacrifice and almost like self-infliction of pain in order for you to get to a certain level before you can live that lifestyle? Or do you feel that's a cop-out and actually you can make it if you're patient, taking care of yourself right from the outset and not doing those 72-hour grinds? What do you think of that?
It's a great question. I've been thinking a lot about sacrifice recently as well. And I could go off on a long one about that, but first I'll answer the question. I think it's like, when I first started playing poker, I was that guy that you just mentioned before, except I even ditched my girlfriend because I wanted to just fucking grind, drink Monster, eat a pizza, grind. It was me. That was me. I lived with my grandma. I didn't do anything else. That was my life, and I crushed it. Now, in that moment, that's all I was capable of doing. I was not capable of meditating. I was so traumatized, and I didn't even fucking know it. I wasn't capable of eating healthy because I didn't love myself or care about myself enough to even think that was warranted. So I don't feel like I had the tools to be able to be that perfect version of myself. So how could I, when I look at that, I can't then say to other people who are in that position, maybe a little bit less intense, but somewhere along that spectrum, and say, well, you should be doing this. You should be meditating. You should be eating healthy. What I can say is, like, from everything that I've learned here, if I were to do it again, here's what I would do. Yeah. In the way that I've become a person that's more in command of my life, that's less chaotic, that's more structured in the way that I do things, that's more optimized. Here's how I would do it. But I've noticed that if you share an idea with somebody, one of two things happens. And if it's a new idea to them, either they're ready for it and they take it in and they listen to it and they're like, that's a good idea. And you see it, you see that the energy penetrate their existence and like, you know what, something could happen here. Or it just bounces off. And it's not often a conscious thing. It's not often they're saying, no, I don't want to do that. They might be like, yeah, cool idea. And you just see it fucking deflects off and they're not going to think about it at least for another, however long, a month, a year, 2 years, it's a lifetime. And that I found is just it's a thing you have to deal with when you're a teacher. You can say, here's what I've learned, but I accept that not everybody's ready to listen. I accept that not everybody's ready to do this. And I'm sure that there are loads of things that, spiritual teachers that I've worked with have said to me that I've just fucking nothing. I probably don't even remember.
Yeah.
So it's not a place of like, one person being able to teach everybody everything and assuming this person's always right. We're always on the journey of growth. I would say that there are still a lot of people in the poker community as a whole that are, at least in my community that I've built, is that there's so many people that are just like really, really open to learning and becoming better versions of themselves, want to learn how to, look after their bodies, how to look after their minds, how to become sharper. And poker, it's such a good incentive, having loads of money just right in front of you, just dangling in front of you, and it's like, oh, if I change my mindset, I can just fucking eat that cat. There aren't many. That's why I always say poker is such a spiritual game. There aren't many things that have that good of an incentive to look at yourself.
Well, the bringing in the element of money there and talking about grinding, a couple of things come up for me. For discussion. One is like, Brendan Burchard in the High Performance Habits, he's number one of his 6 is clarity, right? So I think what comes up for me, I'm listening to you, is if we're going to grind 72 hours and almost like sacrifice everything else in our life, to be really clear, what are we doing this for? Like, are we doing this for healthy reasons and conscious reasons? Or are we unconsciously just driving after the money, right? And that's all we want. And then of course, you've got to add in, Charlie being single, living with his grandma is very different to Lee being married to Liza and having 2 kids. So the amount of time and effort you can put into it and sacrifice is very different to what I can put in for it. But I think, what do you think on that clarity, the reason why you're grinding? Is that important for people listening?
So having reasons for things is going to get a little bit metaphysical. So if anyone's listening, bear with me. Get ready. Thought about this a lot. Having reasons for things is creating structure in your mind, right? It's saying, I'm going to take this vast expansiveness of everything and I'm going to create structure. I'm doing this because of this. I'm doing this so I can achieve this. That can very often be a very powerful thing. We've evolved to have that kind of, I'm going to kill that animal so I can eat my meat. The way that I like to approach things is avoid that as much as I can and rely on being in what I call being, and what other people call being in flow. And so my overarching compass is, let's do as much good in the universe as I possibly can before I die. Let's bring as much joy and remove as much suffering from the universe as I can, and help elevate other people, help elevate myself, live a happy life, all of this thing. But the Buddhist the Sanskrit mantra that describes that is Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. And it's may all beings in all the universes be happy and at peace, or something along those lines. And you can have whatever North Star compass you want. Some people have, I want to make as much money as I want. Some people have, I want to be as happy as I can be. I'm not going to judge anybody for having their own fucking whatever North Star they want. But if you have that North Star, the thing to aim towards, sometimes you don't actually need to justify with analysis and like hardcore simplified logic and heuristics. Sometimes you can just flow and see, okay, this is where I'm pointing. Let's just act in the moment as much as I can. However, sometimes you need clarity. Sometimes people's lives aren't that directed. Sometimes there isn't this overarching meaning in their life. And that's where we rely on structure, or this, kind of rationalization, to be able to help us to get from A to B.